Breaking news, Luke. Except it seems that the thing that's been broken is Christopher Nolan's hopes and dreams. The Economic Times reports Interstellar re-release date, Christopher Nolan's films IMAX print destroyed? Here are details, and it says, Christopher Nolan's Interstellar IMAX prints may have been lost forever as Paramount has reportedly destroyed the IMAX reels of Oscar winner director's sci-fi epic. What do you think of that, Luke?
Well, as someone who is near one of the only cinemas in the world that has the capability of showing a 70mm IMAX in its full glory, then this devastates me.
Well, Luke, Christopher Nolan's film print may be missing, but the good news is at least you never miss an opportunity to tell us that you live near the only place where people can watch his films. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the 20-year anniversary of the release of Spider-Man 2. That's right. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Spider-Man 2?
Yes, Michael. Well, we're actually in a period right now in the summer where we're going to be looking at 3 movies in a row, which each came out in 2004. So it's their 20-year anniversary.
2004 August.
Yeah, there we go. Good stuff. Yeah,
branding's important. That's my department.
It's 2004 August. And yeah, so one of these movies is Spider-Man 2, and there's a theme, okay? You could say they're superhero movies or just hero movies, but the key thing is that the hero or heroine, or both characters in one movie, dress up or put on a disguise so they can be the heroes that they are meant to be.
Yeah, and another theme, I'm sure, and commonality will be that they're all very good.
Yes, all of them are very good. And yeah, you'll have to wait for the next 2 reviews to find out what the next 2 movies are.
Yeah. Well, they'll find out at the end of this because I'll tell them.
Well, yeah, one of them at least.
Yes.
But yeah, so of course the first of these 3 movies, a 2004 movie where the hero, puts on a disguise to save people, and be this hero is of course Spider-Man 2. Yes, the sequel to Spider-Man 1. Which came out 2 years earlier. So yes, Spider-Man 2 is a 2004 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. Directed by Sam Raimi, and the screenplay is by Alvin Sargent. It stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Alfred Molina, Rosemary Harris, and Donna Murphy. The movie came out in 2004, of course, on June the 30th. So yeah, we're a couple of months almost away from, a month and a half away from its actual 20-year anniversary. But anyway, Michael, can you guess what the budget was for Spider-Man 2?
Now, am I allowed to know the budget for the original film?
It was 139 million.
For the first movie? Okay, wow, okay. So, and I said, I think they would have spent more money on it. So I'm going to go 200 million.
That is exactly right.
Way.
200 million. Yes, nailed it. Bang on. Of course, it's a nice round number. And yeah, it's interesting reading the Wikipedia summary for this movie. It's like, as soon as the first movie was released, of course, the original Spider-Man was the first movie to make over $100 million in one weekend. And they were like, okay, yep, you're getting a sequel, Sam Raimi, and it's going to have a $200 million budget right away. They wasted no time in giving him all that money. And yeah, well, did it pay off, Michael? What was the box office for Spider-Man 2?
Again, it would be interesting. So I think you've said before, so I'm gonna say a piece of wisdom you have said before, which is that often the second movie actually in a trilogy doesn't do as well because the first time it's all the hype, the third time it's ending. Having said that, like this movie, like I know a lot about this movie.
Well, the first Spider-Man grossed 825 million.
Right. So I think, while with the budget, I was like, oh yeah, it definitely got a whole load more. I'm not going to fully commit myself to the idea that this movie made significantly more. I'm torn between, like, it's really not much of a difference. Oh, okay, I'll say based on what you said before about the, second movie often doesn't do quite as well, I'm going to say 800 million.
Oh, wow, look at you. You remembered that little tidbit I told you? And guess what? You were right in terms of the drop-off. Because the actual box office is 796 million. So you are so close. This has been like your best ever round of guesses. Yeah, and of
and
course,
wide margins too, or potential wide margins to play with.
of course, you did have knowledge of the previous Spider-Man to give you context how well that did. But yeah,
Yes.
you used your brain, and of course, I thought you were going to mention another interesting fact about the Spider-Man trilogy, or the Raimi trilogy, which was, of course, that the third Spider-Man, widely considered the worst of the trilogy, a really bad movie, in fact, compared to the first two, which are really good. That grossed the most out of all three.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I was kind of thinking that might be the case.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, that is funny.
Of course, there is inflation to factor into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it may not have had the most like screenings or whatever, or people going to see it. But anyway, Michael. Yes, Spider-Man 2. Did you like this movie?
I like this movie. Quite unequivocally. I think like one of my beefs with, let's say, for example, the Marvel movies, is that they tend to not have enough of like the duality of being a superhero. This movie definitely, it's probably like peak duality of being a superhero between like the regular life and the being a superhero stuff. I do have some issues which I will disclose as they emerge, but I think generally this movie, it's got a really solid villain, solid action, solid hero's journey. It's goofy, as we know, but like that's the thing, like that's kind of the charm of these movies. So yeah, definitely I liked it.
Yeah, again,
some people say this is like the best superhero movie of all time, which I wouldn't go that far. But
well, I'll read this on Wikipedia. So, the film is widely regarded as one of the greatest superhero films ever made, and serves as a blueprint for future movies in the genre. Of course, we talked about in the original Spider-Man how that was a blueprint for superhero movies in terms of origin movies, how to do an origin movie, and also was in general a blueprint for superhero. Well, not a blueprint, just I guess I think I talked about in the review. It was the first real sign for movie executives that superhero movies are here, and they're here to stay. Because before you had Batman, but that was like 13 years earlier. The original Superman was even what was that, 79, I think. The original Superman?
I think the original was 78. Okay. But
yeah. So basically, there have been, of course, superhero movies before, but this one, raked in so much money, as did the sequel, of course, and it was like, oh yeah, now is the time for superhero movies to become a dominant force at the box office, and of course we have seen that since I guess 2002 there have never not been superhero movies in the summer. I've got like even this summer 2024, and the highest grossing movie of the year is going to be a superhero movie. It's going to be Deadpool and Wolverine, an R-rated superhero movie at that. That's going to gross like $1.4 billion probably. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been responsible, of course, for propelling that even further. But yeah, so that was the first Spider-Man, and this Spider-Man, I guess, is the blueprint for I guess sequels to superhero movies, and also another sign that these superhero movies are here to stay, because again it grossed a ton of money as well. Well, that's just on the legacy, I guess. That's not really my thoughts on the movie.
Because you're not a sheep.
No, but I will say again, I kind of agree. Yeah, I'd have to really think about it. What are the greatest like superhero movies of all time?
Yeah, I think it depends. Like, obviously, you could say that in a way, like, arguably, it would be different representations of what superhero movies can be. For example, like this movie's obviously a lot more kind of idealized in some ways. Like, there's a lot more kind of like quaint moments, whereas obviously the big contrast to that would be The Dark Knight. So like I'd probably end up saying that like the best superhero movies are probably all quite different from each other because they're all doing different things, which is good to see.
Well, yeah, again, this is such a Sam Raimi movie. Again, like it's such a Raimi movie because again of the goofiness, which I think you mentioned before.
Yes.
And yeah, just in general, again, you contrast that to The Dark Knight, which is, of course, also called one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. It's a completely different tone. Again, this one is very much... It's the most comic book movie that I have, and that I remember seeing, because that's the thing, like, modern superhero movies aren't really comic book-y. You know? They don't have that style, of, like, quick pans and, like, I guess there's very frenetic. There's some slow scenes, of course, which take their time, and those are good. But you just have a really frenetic energy a lot of the time, especially with like scene transitions. And again, Raimi really thought about this. He was in his bag when he did this.
Yeah. I also think like the word I'd use as a phrase is golly gee, which is just like And I to be fair, I watched Superman Returns recently, And it's not a great movie. It has Kevin Spacey in it, so obviously I did have to close my eyes at points so that I wasn't
He's
a bad
bald,
person.
isn't he?
Yeah. But like, to be fair, that also kind of has that charming aspect of it. But obviously, like, the classic example would be Superman of like, golly gee, what a great hero. He's a real swell guy. Like that kind of optimism, which this movie definitely has.
Yeah, because I think it works with the character of Spider-Man. Again, that wouldn't work with Batman.
Yeah.
Again,
golly gee.
Yeah, it's another reason, of course, why Raimi works with Spider-Man, and works because comic books don't have to be like golly gee and like Superman and Spider-Man kind of are. They don't have to be like, oh shucks, and kind of uplifting, kind of cheesy, all of that stuff. They don't have to be that. And again, Batman proves that. I guess maybe it does work better for like if you're trying to make that kind of style. Definitely works better if you're trying to make it like a comic book movie, like what you would think would be a comic book movie. So yeah, I mean, again, you can see that throughout this movie. That was kind of my big takeaway, and also it's really good. It's really good at the same time. In general, again, contrasting it to modern superhero movies, just the focus on the characters is just so intense compared to modern super. I like there's not that many action scenes in this movie. If you really think about it, but there's a lot of focus on the characters, which is again, I think, quite different to what we see in modern times. Go on.
Though, yeah, I was going to agree. Like, it's kind of interesting because even though I've seen this movie several times, even recently, recently as in like maybe a few years ago, but like not just never since I was a kid. I was surprised because I remembered obviously the big famous action scene, which is the train scene. But in my head, I was kind of like surprised because I was thinking, like, I was imagining that the train scene was kind of in the middle of the film, and then there was like a third big action scene later on. And there isn't, and I was like, oh, they're taking a while to get to the train scene, but yeah, like, it's not that I was wanting for an action scene, I was just expecting, and it's kind of obviously considering that, I'm sure as we'll discuss, the action scenes we do get are so good. It's nice to have a situation where your eyes don't just glaze over with the action, but they actually are a bit more conservative with how much they show, but then they really go for it in terms of the excitement.
Yeah, the movie focuses, of course, on Peter Parker's character specifically, which makes sense, of course, because he is Spider-Man. You think about throughout the movie, like, again, there's so many scenes of him, like, having, introspective moments, talking to other characters, and, you're really getting to know this guy and, the dilemma he faces, which is, of course, should he be Spider-Man or should he, pursue his normal life? And that right there is, just not that, I guess, crazy a concept. It's kind of a simple concept, really, if you think about it, and kind of a natural fit for a sequel, which we'll talk about in a bit. So that the movie doesn't really get praised for that, but it just gets praised for how well it executes it and how well it actually intends to follow through on what it's trying to do by giving a lot, by having a lot of these scenes with characters just talking. And I feel like modern superhero movies could try to do the similar thing, like, oh yeah, we're gonna give like Peter Parker, for instance, a real dilemma, but then have a ton of action scenes, or at least quite a bit more than this movie, and not have as many scenes focused on his character, and so they'll just do it like worse. So again, like the what the movie does with Peter Parker is quite interesting, and that's good. But also, like in general, it actually strives to make you care about this character, make you care about, again, the choice that he faces. That is, really good. Like, the movie puts in the effort regarding the character arc, and also the action scenes are really good too. So
yes,
that's why, you look at this movie as a superhero movie, it's like, oh, this is almost like the perfect movie.
I can't immediately think like, oh, what other superhero movies compete with it? But definitely, I think it's a great incarnation of Spider-Man. I'm somebody who's always felt that Spider-Man is not well served by being in the MCU, precisely because this kind of like down-to-earth aspect of it, I think, is quite core to the character. And that obviously does get lost with like him fighting space aliens and stuff. So yeah, definitely easily. But I suppose, like, having said that, like, to say he's my favorite incarnation of Spider-Man, the other competition would be the Amazing Spider-Man. So yeah, maybe that's understating the praise, but it's worth saying.
Yes. So it's interesting, by the way, reading about what the draft was. So there was a younger Doc Ock who became infatuated with Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Gay.
Well, which we'll get into. I'll read out more of that in a bit when we go into the plot. But how many nitpicks do you have?
I have 3.
I have 1 and 2 nitpicks. So you go first.
Okay. 2 of these are about his amazing strength, or like super strength or whatever. 1, there are several moments where, okay, so I'm going to say it like this. Doc Ock does not have any sort of like superpowers to his own body. Like the only thing he's got is these mechanical arms. And like when you're thinking about that and you're watching the action scenes, like there are several moments where he clearly should have been knocked out or something. Because obviously there's moments where you say, oh, he's flying around and the arms are maybe cushioning his fall and stuff. But there's moments where he just straight up gets punched in the face by Spider-Man. And Spider-Man obviously has like super strength, like enough to stop a runaway train. So really there should have been a point where it was just like Doc Ock like knocked out and the arms just like moving around. I just thought it was funny. The other thing is, and like I've heard someone else point this out before, like when he kind of is like losing his powers, I don't know about this. It seems as if he still has some extra durability, but maybe it is the case that you can actually survive falling like 6 stories from a building. Because it's like obviously the scene where it's like, oh, my back. And it's like he's clearly hurt, but it's like, well, he must, I guess, have some extra abilities because I don't think you should be able to survive falling like he does. I don't know if that counts, because maybe you could say, he could, like he lands on a car, it cushions his fall, whatever. So if you're not going to accept that, then here's my third and final one. I am 100% sure that you couldn't destroy a fusion reactor with water. I was almost considering like making like upgrading this because it is like right at the end, it's a big moment. But I was like, it's a silly movie. But I decided to look it up and I was like, because obviously fusion is how the sun is powered. So I Googled, could you extinguish the sun with water? And it said, unsurprisingly, no, you can't extinguish the sun with water, because it's not a chemical reaction, it's an atomic reaction, so just adding more atoms to it would only make it more powerful. So there we go. When he's at the end, he's like, we can just destroy this fusion ball by putting it in the lake. That wouldn't, or the river or whatever. That actually wouldn't work. There we go. Bad science movie.
Okay, but is it? It's not. It's like a smaller sun, you know. So
yeah, but I think the thing is like, even still, I guess I mean like obviously fusion is like made up science anyway. So
okay.
Like I know it's not like made up science because it actually exists.
Sure,
but like the idea of
working in fusion will be happy to say that.
It's I was gonna, like it's okay. I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna cut this. Like I was like, it's science anyway. I'll cut that.
Right. No. Yeah. Just cut the religion you mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So imagine like, oh, what religion could he have mentioned there? It's Muslim science.
Okay. Right. So my nitpick. I'll tell you first. So right, the amount of characters in this movie, particularly side characters, screaming, it's just too much.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like the woman in the office who just like screams straight at the camera, which is a really funny scene.
Like Raimi loves that shit. Like he just loves side characters again, screaming. Well, yeah, like extras, like there's screaming, and again he wants to make it like kind of cheesy. So there you go.
Yeah, but like also like obviously he's got that kind of horror movie director thing, but then even his horror movies are cheesy. So it's like that campy horror thing, which works perfectly.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So yeah, and it's just like it's too much after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Calm that down. So my lit picks. Dr. Han works for Dr. Otto Octavius. This is, of course, before he, became a surgeon in The Good Doctor. He was a scientist. So
yeah. For a minute, I thought you were being like a massive nerd and saying like that this is some kind of obscure, like deep Marvel lore character or something. I was like, Dr. Han, is he like, because obviously they have Dr. Kurt Connors in this, and of course he is the Lizard.
You know what? That was going to be my next.
Oh really?
Lit pick. Yeah, Dr. Connors, who of course is Peter's teacher. At the university, and my lit pick is he doesn't have an arm, which is quite nice detail,
Yeah,
they that's the thing. Movies back in the day, they took their time with stuff like this. They paid attention to the detail. They made an effort. So it's like, he doesn't have an arm. They could have just it's like, give him 2 arms. Nobody's going to care. But no, they took an arm away from him. Yeah,
I do wonder whether or not, because obviously I think there are. I think this is the case in all 3 of the movies. Like whenever they needed like a character, like a random side character or whatever, they'd be like, well, we might as well include someone from the comics. Like what's her face's husband or like fiance, the Jameson. I can't remember his first name, but he is actually he's a villain. In one of the Spider-Man comics. Okay. I think it's some like stupid thing. Like I think he goes into space and he gets like possessed by a space alien or something. But it's just like one of those things. But again, like obviously if you're going to include a character, like hey, you might as well include a character from the comics. But at the same time, I wonder whether or not they were like, well, let's leave the door open to the idea of maybe he'll come back as a villain. So they're like, well, which is good, and like they might as well have. But yeah, like good.
Yeah. That should be a nitpick, by the way. The fact that he's an astronaut going to the moon when he's like 23 or something. I don't know how old he is. But yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, either that or he's like really old and he's like pedoing at art with MJ.
Well, he's not that old because we can see him.
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
That's a clue that he's not that old. I can't. What was I going to mention about Dr. Han? Well, you mentioned before actually. thinking that I knew who, if
Yeah.
suggesting that Dr. Ham was a character from the Marvel Universe, a really obscure one. Of course, Betty Brant
Yes.
is in this movie, and I know about her. Well, that the character is called Betty Brant, of course, this character that works at the Bugle, because I've seen on YouTube, I haven't clicked it, just this recommended video, which is the Spider-Man trilogy, but it's just Betty Brant. And it's like 3 minutes long. And this is how beloved these movies are. Like somebody would create a compilation of just the scenes involving this pointless side character, Betty Brant. But there you go. She's in.
Yeah.
Actually, what is that character in the modern Tom Holland Spider-Man movies? Because I think she might be played by Angourie Rice, whatever she's called, and that is the girl.
Oh yes.
From The Nice Guys.
So yeah, you're right about Angourie Rice.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that name, by the way, but Angourie Ria, something like that.
No. So it's definitely her surname's definitely Rice. Sorry. Sorry. You're saying her first. Yeah, I thought that's really funny. When you said Angourie Ria, I thought you were mispronouncing Rice, and I was like, no. Oh yeah. I see what you're saying about how her name ends. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. So does the character that she definitely plays a character in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies? Is that Betty Brant?
That is Betty Brant.
Oh, yes, there you go. So I know my Spider-Man stuff, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So let's get into the plot. So, of course, Peter Parker is, he's struggling to stop scientist Dr. Otto Octavius from recreating the dangerous experiment that killed his wife and left him fused to mechanical tentacles. Just a regular everyday thing,
Guy named Otto Octavius gets some fatal arms.
That's
some good, what's that called? What's the word? Lampshading.
Yeah, but no, it's not lampshading because you get Jameson to say it. So then that's okay. Just get him to point out the ridiculous nature of the universe that this movie is set in, and we're okay. And of course he's dealing with an existential crisis, is Peter, between his dual identities that appears to be stripping him of his powers. Yes. So it's all about, his choice. Is he going to be Spider-Man or is he going to give it up? And we'll get into that and how the movie, I think it does this very well. It convinces you that, Spider-Man is kind of a curse,
Yeah.
Like when he gets rid of the costume, you are thinking, that is the right thing to do. And at the start of the movie, that would be crazy. It's like, you want to be Spider-Man. Like, he's such a cool superhero to be, like going around New York City, swinging his web, and just going through the skyscrapers, saving the day, etc. But then it's like, who would actually want to be Spider-Man because of all the issues that Peter faces? I think you can acknowledge Spider-Man is one of the best superheroes to be, I guess, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I think I've always thought like Spider-Man's like the ultimate escapist fantasy, because of the fact that he's kind of a nerd, but also the fact that he kind of like gets his powers kind of magically. Like I've always said, like Batman, that's not a good escapist fantasy because it's like you've got to actually work hard to be Batman, and that sucks. Yeah,
and the fact that he's a nerd maybe has something to do with that. So the fact that you're like, Peter, like throw that costume away. Nobody has to be Spider-Man. You're kind of agreeing with him when he does that. It's a great job that the movie does to get.
Nothing's worrying me.
Yeah, exactly. He just wants to live his life. And we'll get into how this movie convinces you that is the right choice almost for him to do that. So yes. Let's get into the script. So Peter Parker struggles professionally and personally because of his commitments as Spider-Man. That's how it starts off on Wikipedia, and that's basically the whole movie. Peter juggles multiple jobs and gets fired from one. Yeah. Have you seen the Chappelle Show?
Go!
What?
I just felt like the way the guy goes, go! The whatever his name is, Crazy Joe, the pizza guy, the Indian pizza guy. It's like, go!
He's not Indian, by the way.
Oh, I don't know what he is. Chappelle. Yeah, what about the Chappelle?
Dave Chappelle.
I know about him, but I don't know.
Have you ever seen the Chappelle Show?
I've seen one episode of the Chappelle Show and a few like clips of it on it, but I haven't followed it religiously enough, I'm afraid, to probably know what you're talking about.
Okay, well the guy, when he changes into his Spider-Man, costume, and gets the pizzas, and the black guy says, "Hey, he stole that guy's pizzas." Yeah, he's from the Chappelle Show. He plays a character. Well, he plays a lot of characters, but one of them is called Ashy Larry, who's really good at dice. So there you go. But I just recognized that guy. But and then of course, another famous line. Another famous, I guess, meme line. Pizza time.
Yeah, it's pizza time.
Yeah, how did that become a meme?
Well, you know what? So the only thing I know it from is there's a YouTube poop called literally it's pizza time, and it is actually quite a funny. It's quite a funny clip. It's quite a funny YouTube poop. Like one of the recurring jokes I know from it is that obviously, like, you know, Otto Octavius is like, this kid thinks I'm going to blow up the city. They like edited it, so every single time he's talking about any of his plans, he's like, you need to help me, Peter. I've got to blow up the city. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to see me blow up the city. So there we go. They do a few jokes like that. But that's the first time I ever saw like pizza time as a joke.
Okay, well, it's got staying power apparently.
Yeah. I think it's just like because it is pizza time. Really,
it is. It's pizza time. I guess. Yeah. It's a weird thing to say. I guess. You know, you just deliver the pizzas. Who would say pizza time?
Yeah, like I think like I mean honestly, I forgot. So Tobey Maguire, he's got like such like great awkward energy.
Yes, which is why he's a great choice for Peter Parker, which is what we talked about in the last review.
Yes, let's not tread on our own feet here.
Yeah, so Peter faces overdue rent and schoolwork, and his aunt May is being evicted. Daily Bugle owner J. Jonah Jameson has turned the city against Spider-Man. Well, he kind of has. And Peter's best friend, Harry, also hates him. Well, he hates Spider-Man, of course. And yes. We covered this in the first movie, but J. Jonah Jameson is amazing.
Yes.
Those scenes are so good, aren't they?
Yeah, I like every single time he tells someone they're fired and then immediately rescinds it.
Yeah. God, he's so good. But again, there is this relatability with this Spider-Man. You know, he was trying to juggle so much, and you know he can't do it. You know, he's short on money. You know, he's short on time as well, of course. And again, we mentioned this a lot in the last Spider-Man review. And again, like you said, we don't want to tread over our own toes, but it's so different to Tom Holland and his Spider-Man with all his tech and his cool, you know, supermodel girlfriend, which is Zendaya. Well, she's a supermodel in real life, of course.
Yeah.
And of course Tom Holland's actual girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's really got it made.
Yeah. Again, every like that Spider-Man just lives in a completely different universe to this Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think like also another aspect of it is not just that he's got the tech, but also like one of the things that really bothered me about the Tom Holland Spider-Man, especially in the first film, is that he barely even wants, and this is something they kind of rectified in the second film and the third film actually, he barely even wants a normal life. Like obviously his main motivation is being an Avenger, but I always think about like that scene where it's like he's going on that prom date with the girl, like Vulture's daughter, and then he's just like has very little interest, it seems, in actually going to the prom, and he just wants to go and stop Vulture. And that always annoyed me because I was like, no, like I feel like Spider-Man, like the conflict is supposed to be about the fact he wants to live a normal life. Whereas, with Tom Holland, it's kind of like his main motivation is that he wants to be an Avenger, which is worse.
Yeah, that is worse, yes. Yeah. Because again, he's just kind of an avatar for the audience, you know? Or for the younger, I guess, you know, audience who watches the Avengers movies, and he's like, oh yeah, I want to be like them, instead of, you know, his own personal journey of like struggling between, well, just struggling, you know, to have enough money again. Like he's a real working class hero, as we talked about in the first review, Spider-Man. That's where he's at his best, and again, this is the case in this movie. But I don't know why he doesn't just like live at home though. Still,
yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah, like, you know, stupid millennial.
Well, he's not a millennial, is he?
Yeah, sorry, I meant to say the opposite. Damn Generation X, they thought they had it so bad, and then
is he? Because he's like 20 years old.
No, so, I think he would be Generation X.
No, that's 84. Like he was probably born in 1984, and that's millennial. That is millennial, I think. When like Peter's trying to do everything, juggle his life, you know, and be, you know, Spider-Man as well at the same time, you know, juggle these responsibilities, I guess. I was like, oh, he's just like me, you know, editing these videos that we do.
Oh, that is so, like that is 100% true.
You know, but sometimes I'm like, fuck, I got to record, then I got to edit it, then I got to record Pope is gay and edit that. Fucking hell. And you always get the audio wrong, and I have to, you know, tell you to do changes.
Yeah. And I'm always telling you that we've got like a 29-minute guarantee on our podcast episodes.
Yes.
Like, the Select and Reflect 29-minute guarantee is a promise.
Okay.
Like the episode is over 29 minutes. What you're describing is physically impossible. Go!
Right. So Harry Osborn blames Spider-Man for his father's death, but still invites Peter, who of course is friends with Spider-Man, to meet Otto Octavius.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good message, especially in our current political climate, that while you might disagree with someone, we shouldn't have this guilt by association.
Okay, so Harry uses Oscorp. Yeah, good point, because Harry never rubs it in Peter's face that he knows Spider-Man throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he's like fine with it. Yeah, he's like,
he's really cool with it. Yeah,
he's like, you know, hey, just so you know, like, sure, you know, we may, like, I don't believe the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You know, it's fine. Like,
wait, what?
Oh, I don't know, but I guess the opposite. What would that be called? The friend of my enemy isn't my enemy.
There we go. Right, so Harry uses Oscorp to fund the development of a fusion power machine by nuclear scientist Otto Octavius. Again, Peter, you know, wants to write a paper on this scientist, and his best friend happens to know him, and of course is working for his best friend. What are the odds? Right?
Yeah, this is like that's the thing. I mean, that's kind of the enduring thing in every single one of these Sam Raimi Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess.
Well, it's the enduring thing in all Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. Actually, that's true. Yeah, because I was just thinking how it was any other ones. And I guess I mean, do we even want to address the question of like, does it qualify on any level as like a flaw in the films, or can you just accept it as like, well, like tonally the films are obviously very goofy, so it's just fine.
I can accept it because at least this is kind of believable. Because like Harry is rich, so he'd have someone like this working for him, who's a scientist, and of course, he is interested in science, so it's not the craziest coincidence ever.
I'm with you on this because I feel like one of the benefits, like it makes sense when it's like the connection is to do with being sciencey. Because I'm willing to believe that New York, as far as I know, is filled with a lot of like stupid people who talk about gabagool. So I'm willing to believe that the scientific elite of New York is comprised of like a dozen people and they all know each other.
Yeah, well, again, people in your field, of course, naturally,
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. Because it's like, so that works with like Norman Osborn as well. Yeah. But I mean, the one thing that it doesn't work with is goddamn Flynn Marko from the third film.
No, I thought you were going to say from the third movie, Topher Grace.
Yeah, Topher Grace, yeah, that's
Venom.
also.
Venom.
Yeah, the third movie, really, I know this might be a controversial opinion, but in some ways it represented a decline in quality.
Yeah, like, who is Venom? Oh, the other photographer that... at the Daily Bugle, who is competing with Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Anyway, so let's talk about at that birthday party. That of course, it's the stupidest birthday party ever. I like that. That scene is quite weird because it just ends like Harry and Peter have an argument about Spider-Man, and it just ends. And then like for some reason Mary Jane is just waiting outside for him.
Yeah, I was thinking that was a bit of a weird scene transition.
Yeah, I know. It's just kind of weird, but yeah. Obviously, Peter misses Mary Jane's play because he has to be Spider-Man again. Yes. It's a simple concept and it's such a simple dilemma, I guess. Who's he going to be, Peter Parker or Spider-Man? He can't have both. But yeah, the movie executes that so well. Again, like when he's not being let into the play. You kind of just feel for him. When that usher is just like, no, you're not coming in. You're like, oh no, come on, let him in, man. Come on, let him in. Yeah.
Especially since it turns out that Usher is Mysterio.
What?
Did you know about this? Okay. So do you know who that Usher is played by?
No.
Bruce Campbell, who is a frequent collaborator of Sam Raimi, and this is the key thing, he cameos in all 3 Spider-Man films in different roles. I think he's the wrestling announcer in the first film, and the third one he's a waiter at a restaurant. And the original plan for Spider-Man 4, if Sam Raimi would have got around to making it, would have been, and to be honest, this would have taken like the connections thing to the next level. He was going to say that Bruce Campbell is Mysterio, and that's why he's appeared at 3 different times playing 3 different roles. So that's like a fun little fact there.
Yeah, well, that is quite fun.
That could have been a lip pick. Damn it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think again it's the right move for a sequel. Well, we talked about this with Shrek again. Like the sequel for Shrek 2, obviously, or the plot for Shrek 2 was, Shrek is meeting the parents. He falls in love with Fiona in the first one. Now he has to meet the parents, which is a natural fit for a sequel plot. It can create some comedic scenarios, and the plot in this sequel is it's obvious as well. But just because it is obvious and it is simple, I guess writers don't always choose that to be the case, do they? Like, oh yeah, he has to now deal with the fact that he is Spider-Man and he's he's living in 2 different like worlds, or he's trying to, and he can't do it. Right? It's such a natural thing to do for a sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, I mean, it works with like the whole like idea that the second act is supposed to be kind of dark. Obviously, this movie is not dark, tonally exactly, but the idea of having a much more kind of negative, cynical outlook of, is it even good to be Spider-Man, works for your second act, for your kind of big challenge for the character to deal with. So yeah, in terms of the standard 3-act structure of a trilogy, it works that way too.
Yeah, so I'll just talk about, again, I mentioned this before, what the original script was.
I'm actually quite excited. Like, I hope that we get to find out the entirety of the details of the original script, because I love what movies it could have been.
Yeah, so basically Octavius injures 2 muggers on a date, and this horrifies Mary Jane. And basically, I'm not sure what happens, but yeah, Spider-Man basically has a battle with Octavius, and his tentacles are fused together, and the fusion begins to kill Octavius. And yeah, he was the creator of the genetically altered spider from the first film.
Oh, okay, it's one of those things.
Yeah, and gives Peter an antidote to remove his powers. This means when Octavius is dying with his tentacles, he wants to extract Spider-Man's spine to save himself. This leads to an alliance with Harry, a detail which made it into the finished film. Beforehand, Harry and the Daily Bugle puts a $10 million price on Spider-Man's head, causing the city's citizens to turn against him. Which, again, that's all the stuff to do with Octavius. Did this script, which of course was turned down, did this have a look at, the again, the character of Peter Parker, him trying to be Spider-Man and Peter Parker, because it doesn't say it in this little synopsis here.
Yeah, well, the fact that he got an antidote to the Spider-Man venom or whatever it was, obviously in this movie that comes from his own sense of internal turmoil. Yes. So the fact that that's a difference suggests this, what you're describing would have had less to do with his character and that internal turmoil if they had a different explanation for why he loses his powers. Yeah,
again, the fact that that could be on the table and he would consider it, Peter, means that maybe the script dealt with kind of the same issues, but perhaps not, again. But that's what I said before, it may be simple, and it should be obvious to be like, oh yeah, so the second movie was about him struggling to be Spider-Man and Peter Parker. But again, maybe the original script wasn't going to go down that path. But they did in this instance. Yeah, and again, when he's giving that speech on the payphone, remember that scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just little moments like that which are great, which again, they're sincere and earnest, and yeah, you feel like those kind of scenes are just missing from modern superhero movies, Yeah, and of course he starts to lose his powers because I guess he doesn't internally want to be Spider-Man anymore, in his subconscious, he doesn't want it. Which is, again, a really interesting concept. I think more interesting than, take this antidote and it's gone,
Yeah, I think it does work because obviously, I don't know, again, I've already mentioned I watched Superman Returns. You won't believe how they're able to get a win over Superman of his powers. Shock horror, the magic green glowing rock. Wow, what an exciting twist. The point is, often with these kind of superhero things, the powers in general start to feel just a bit arbitrary, and often the ways that the powers are defeated seems arbitrary. So it's good to have a moment where, no, the reason why, or the limitation is a very human limitation of a mental block from his internal conflict. Yeah,
the conflict within the character, rather than just some science bullshit.
Yes.
So Otto Octavius befriends and mentors Peter and gives him an alternative to Uncle Ben's line, which is, intelligence is not a privilege, it's a gift, and you use it for the good of mankind. And yeah, obviously, Peter turns that line on him at the end, which we'll talk about. But yeah, it's a decent line, of course. But yeah, I guess, I think, Sam Raimi or the scriptwriter, whoever it was thinking, we can't have Otto Octavius say the exact same thing as Uncle Ben. So we have to, change it a bit. And yeah, is that a good enough change?
Well, yeah. I think I remember. I think I've seen the CinemaSins video on this. It was one of the early ones he did. It's actually quite a funny video. He makes quite a few good jokes in it because it was back before CinemaSins got ridiculous. But I remember he's like when Otto Octavius says that line, the CinemaSins guy's like, you could say with great intelligence comes great responsibility, and that kind of drives home the fact that it is a bit derivative.
I think Alfred Molina, let's talk about him, by the way.
Yes.
I think he's great. He's just so good as this character. Again, when he reprised his role in Spider-Man No Way Home, I thought he was the best of the villains that came back. And yeah, he's just very charismatic. He's just a perfect fit for the character. And yeah, I think he is probably the best Spider-Man villain that I have seen on the big screen, as they say. I think he is there anyone better, Michael? Can you tell me?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure, because the thing is, obviously, there's a question of is it about the quality of the writing around the character, or about how great the actor is in the role? Because I think you could argue Willem Dafoe, he does a really good job playing a crazy goblin. I think actually a lot of Spider-Man characters, it's certainly in this series, but kind of in general, have been well cast. Except for Jamie Foxx's Electro, that was stupid. But we'll ignore the Amazing Spider-Man. But even Michael Keaton, that works as the Vulture. I buy it. Fucking what's his face as Mysterio. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal, that's it. Yeah, because he's kind of a creepy. I don't dislike Jake Gyllenhaal, but he kind of gives off creepy, disingenuous vibes. So that works. So I'm not sure whether or not I would say Alfred Molina is a great actor for the role specifically, or does a uniquely great performance. Although I would agree with you that he is really good in the No Way Home. But I also think it's definitely helpful the character writing around Otto Octavius is very good as well. I think he's very good at a kind of like writing that line between being sympathetic and villainous. Like the way, like it's kind of surprising how easy it is to buy, because you'd think, like, so I think this is probably speaks to the real strength of him as an actor. The idea of like a character who he's like, oh, he's a good guy, but then some robot arms like convince him to blow up the city using fusion. Like that sounds so stupid. And like it's the kind of thing where you just be like, oh, this is just such dumb character writing. And the fact that he's able to like pull it off, where like every single kind of subtlety in the relationship he has with the arms completely sells you on the fact that, like, yeah, this is really happening. This is like a guy who's been like manipulated by some AI arms, but like now he's realizing it's wrong. Like every character beat you do completely believe. So yeah, I do think that is actually a genuine strength of the character of the actor, and it's quite an impressive thing to have pulled off.
Yeah, no, I agree. So anyway, during a public demonstration, Octavius wears a harness with 4 powerful mechanical tentacles controlled by artificial intelligence to interact with the machine. Does this make sense? Again, I think so. Like, does he need these tentacles to interact with the machine? Does he need like the tentacles attached to him?
Yeah, I was thinking that, like, it kind of, I mean, I guess you have to have the tentacles for some reason, and this is like a reasonable reason.
Can't you just control the control the fusion with control them with the tentacles, but have the tentacles attached to like a PS2 controller?
Yeah, like I'm wondering. Yeah, like I guess the logic is that, well, like he has to be as precise as he would be with his own arms, and the only way to do that is through like a direct neural connection.
The thing is, like, I think what's the phrase? It's called when you create, when you say something and actually you're burying the lead. That's it. So he's like burying the lead with like, oh yeah, I created these artificial AI like tentacle arms, just casually, I was like, whoa, hold on a minute, this is like groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, because like when you think about it logically, it's like you have to invent like the logic of like the interface there of something that would allow your brain to control a whole new set of limbs as if they were your own. Is incredible.
Sorry, that's what Elon Musk is doing right now. Well, he's trying to do and failing with his Neuralink thing. Yeah. And
you know what though?
Go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say you see another really funny CinemaSins joke, because it's just such a funny, great channel. Is they literally make that point of like, how many inventions did this guy like brush over in his effort to create fusion? And it kind of says like a joke. Of course, the neural interfacer also gives you cancer, so I had to cure that as well. That was really funny.
Yeah, no, that's a good joke. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, even today, 20 years later, we can't do it. And how many monkeys have been killed by Elon Musk? How many monkeys has Otto Octavius killed? That's the real scandal here. To get these tentacle AI arms to work. So, though initially successful, of course, the fusion reaction destabilizes, but Octavius refuses to shut down the machine because his ego is just too goddamn big. Before Peter can cut the power surges and kills Octavius's wife. Yeah, and of course, then the inhibitor, which is restricting the tentacles, AI ability to control his brain, that is destroyed. So, of course, now the tentacles can take over his brain. And yeah, I think it's a great scene, really. It's executed well. But I like how people just aren't surprised when Spider-Man just shows up. Like, what the fuck is Spider-Man doing here? Like,
oh my god, he's always here.
How did he get here so quickly, Like, that's just Spider-Man, don't worry. Harry, of course, he's saved by Spider-Man, and he just isn't surprised at all. Of course, he's here. And then, of course, Harry walking out of the building says, I have nothing left except Spider-Man. And he says it to nobody, which and that has kind of become a meme as well. That line. I was wondering why it became a meme. I was like, because he doesn't really say it to anybody.
Yeah, like it comes across like a very kind of goofy comic book, much like, damn it, Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Octavius is taken to a hospital where doctors attempt to remove the harness, but the tentacles defend themselves and kill the doctors. Again, a great Sam Raimi scene. Again, this is his horror movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Skills coming through, right?
Yeah, like this scene is like it leaves a real impact. There's a video essay just entirely about this scene, which is not exactly surprising because there's like a lot of like great stuff in terms of the way they just communicate what's happening and like give these arms again, and it's a good contrast because obviously this is a concept that could easily sound super goofy. But it works.
Yeah, no, it does work, and well, it works apart from one bit where Octavius, at the end of the scene, screams like Darth Vader.
He goes, no! Yeah, that is a bit goofy.
Yeah, Darth Vader-esque, yeah. That's why George Lucas got the idea. Yeah, the scene with Jameson again afterwards is great. And we get a cameo from Raimi? Is that Sam Raimi?
I think that's Sam Raimi's brother.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it Raimi or his brother? Because I can't remember, but it's
Yes.
his brother. Yes, who of course says Doctor Strange. Of course.
Yes.
And what I was disappointed by, we don't see any reaction in this scene or the scene where Octavius fucks everything up. We don't, when Peter is in Jameson's office, doesn't react at all because they're discussing, Octavius, and he doesn't react at all, even though he respected this guy and looked up to him. He was going to write a fucking paper on him, It's a big deal for him.
Yeah, you don't really see like his sense of like sadness about the fact that someone he respects has become a crazy person.
Yeah, well, he hasn't become a crazy person yet. Of course. Yeah, he's just
concern.
He's just like, oh, that's just another day of being Spider-Man, I guess. Your mentor or the guy you looked up to, your hero, just kills his wife and destroys the building and incapacitates himself and all of that shit. Yeah, and I think a reaction from Peter in that scene or the scene before as Spider-Man would have been good.
I can see that.
Yeah, so Octavius, of course, flees to a decrepit harbour warehouse where the tentacles corrupt his mind and convince him to rebuild the machine. Again, it's very good directing from Raimi, the way the inhibitor chip is shown to be gone. Do you remember that? Like, he's like, the inhibitor chip, and then the camera... Oh, no, he spins around quickly, and then the camera zooms in on the chip. And it's just like... I love that directing. It just works with, again, the tone of the movie, the comic book style,
Yeah, I was going to say very comic booky.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why a harbour warehouse though? Why there?
I don't know. See, I was going to write to there was going to be like a potential nit because I wasn't sure. I was like, hold a minute, is this literally like, because it's obviously it looks like a ruined area where he is, and I was like, this isn't like literally the ruins of his house where he just did the experiment, is it? So I was like glad that wasn't the case. I mean, I guess it makes sense that you had to pick like a big area that people would be unlikely to go to.
Well, and why? By the way, it's in the sea.
Is it just because of the like? So it sets things up for the ending when he can destroy it.
Also, he's Dr. Octopus.
Oh yeah. That's kind of weird. I never really thought about the fact that like with him being Dr. Octopus, he could have easily had more of a sea focused thing, or he could have been about how he doesn't have any bones, so he can squeeze into tight spaces.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a sea focused like criminal like styling.
Or like an enemy of Aquaman.
Yeah, something like that. Octavius, of course, robs a bank to fund his plan and, of course, takes Aunt May hostage, but Peter rescues her. Okay, so we're going to talk about this scene now. We can see the difference, I think, between Octavius and Peter, and why I think Octavius is a good villain in this movie, because the thing is, he has a problem, of course, regarding money. He wants to fund his project, but lacks the cash to do so. Now, of course, he's, turned evil. And he doesn't have Oscorp's backing, so that's a good motivation. Obviously, that like it makes sense for a Spider-Man movie to have a villain who's motivated like this. But again, he steals the money. That's how he gets it. Whereas with Peter, he is at the bank, of course, in the same scene because Aunt May needs money, and of course Peter does too. Like he's trying to do the right thing throughout the movie, and he doesn't steal. Of course, he doesn't even consider that. Even though, as Spider-Man, that would be easy for him to do.
Yes.
He has these money problems, but again, he doesn't even consider stealing. And again, I think that's why in this movie there's so much focus on like him not paying the rent and him asking for an advance. Because again, that doesn't need to be in the movie because it can just be like, oh, he's so stressed because he has to be everywhere at once. But they add in this, I guess, financial element, like he's struggling, and Aunt May is also struggling. I guess because it grounds the movie and makes Spider-Man more of a I guess more relatable, the working class roots of him, etc. But it also, serves as a nice contrast to Doc Ock, who is the villain. Peter's the hero, he doesn't steal money, even though he can, and Doc Ock just like, no, I'm the villain, I'm going to steal it. So I just thought that was kind of neat how we see the hero and the villain contrasted in that scene. When they both need money, of course. Yeah,
I'm absolutely with you. And if I had Spider-Man powers, I would rob a bank, so I'm really impressed. No, I think having that contrast of, what's that saying? It's like anybody can be a good person if everything's going well. If you want to truly test a man's character, put him in a position of adversity. I think that's like Lincoln said something like that. But like that's it. Like you have to see how Spider-Man reacts to his life being kind of shit in order to truly show him as a hero. Yeah,
exactly. That's a good point as well. Yeah, it enhances his heroicness, I guess. Yeah, yes. At the same time. So let's talk about this action scene again. Like, it's a coincidence that Peter and Aunt May are at the bank at the same time, and why is there just a massive safe just in the bank, like hall or lobby. Why is it? I don't think that's why they keep the safe, just like where anyone can go up to it.
Yeah. And to be fair, it would make it much harder to rob the safe usually, because I feel like usually like efforts to rob a safe are kind of covert, whereas so this way like everyone would notice. They'd be like, "Where's that guy right in the middle of everything robbing the safe?" So at least it means that if someone does rob the safe, everyone's going to know about it.
Yeah, but again, I don't really think that's an issue, to be honest, because I think when you're robbing a bank, most of the time people in the bank are aware you're robbing it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So you don't like being, I guess, covert isn't really a strategy that bank robbers use. From what I've seen of bank
like,
robbery,
oh man, we've been robbed.
Yes,
it's 10 days ago. No one noticed.
Yeah, but like whatever. I like the line where, of course, Josh McHale says, "Hey, that boy of yours is a real hero."
Yes.
It's corny or whatever, but again, it works in the scene. I think in general, the action scene is just great. Again, it's so much better than modern day action scenes. I guess because like the director Raimi, of course, he's thought about it. He again, like, it's been planned out. Effort has been there's effort that's gone into this. I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, like, I like the way that the powers, they're not too bullshit, and that you still have a concept, because I think first of all they use the powers in a way that like makes sense. Like Doc Ock, okay, he's got lots of hands. What he's gonna do? He's gonna throw loads of stuff at Spider-Man. That makes sense. Spider-Man, he uses webs to sting things. But like, again, in case you can't tell, I decided to catch up on some Phase 4, because I was like, I haven't seen a lot of Phase 4, and since we're doing a Marvel movie, I'll use this as an opportunity to catch up. One of the things I realized as my eyes glazed over is how many times that it's just like one person has generic trans-dimensional unearthly power, and the other person has the same thing but slightly different, whether it's like Norse god power versus like quantum mechanic power, and it means that like you have literally no concept of what it means, and it's just like, oh, I guess conveniently they happen to, even though like they're going to extra dimensions and the quantum realm and different gods and things like that.
Somebody watched Ant-Man.
It just so conveniently happens that they're all almost like equally matched enough to like have these fights, whereas in this case, like, oh yeah, of course I can completely lose. You got like a guy with robot arms, a guy with super strength, and like web slinging powers. Like, I can just work out for myself how this is playing out, and it makes sense.
Yeah. So again, after Peter and Aunt May defeat Doc Ock, he just flies off, and like I think this is one of the most disappointing parts of the movie, honestly, because, well, I say Doc Ock just flies off. Obviously, he doesn't fly off. He crawls off. But you know what I mean. Because there's like he saves Aunt May, and then Spider-Man does the web thing and soars away. You have like all these girls who were like, "Oh, take me."
The girls in like the crowd, like watching him be a hero. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing. Right now in the movie, like, the movie is focused on how shit it is being Spider-Man. And after he saves Aunt May, like, he that shouldn't be the case. Like, oh, all these people like, wow, Spider-Man, you're a hero. I love you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it contradicts it.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that was a good choice. I wonder if the script was different when they filmed. Well, it couldn't have been different. So go on.
I feel like a good thing maybe would be like if after he does it, like the police like they treat him like a villain or something, like, so like he has a fight and maybe he's injured or something, and then the police go around and like, get on the floor, blah blah blah. And also that could explain why Doc Ock's able to get away, because the police treat him as a villain. Because I was thinking that actually, like, and I neglected to mention this, like, obviously they do talk about how like, oh, Spider-Man, the whole J. Jonah Jameson's turned the whole city against Spider-Man, and I think when you mentioned that, you kind of made a bit of a like, not really kind of like noise, because that aspect isn't really found in this film. Like, there's not really much of a sense of the city being against Spider-Man here, so it would have been good if they actually did have some indication that some people had been, kind of turned by the Daily Bugle such that they now were suspicious of Spider-Man, and of course that way when Spider-Man does this thing, they could have had people reacting to him negatively, and it all works, but they didn't do that.
No, I think it's and again, you consider what Spider-Man has just gone through. Again, he's had a fight with Doc Ock, again, his mentor. It should be like, there should be a moment of reflection from him, because this guy, his mentor or his hero or whatever, he should, like, again, I think at the end of the scene, he should go up to a roof or whatever, take off his mask and look out, try and see where Doc Ock is, and just have a really disappointed face. Like, I can't believe I'm like fighting this guy who I looks up to. And when he is battling Doc Ock, he should say, I don't want to do this. What are you doing? You were a great man, etc. You were respected. Just stop this. Again, I think that it would be better if there was more of a focus on the relationship between Peter and
Dr. Octopus. Otto Octavius.
Should I call him Otto Octavius, Doc Ock, or Dr. Octopus?
I think, well, probably Dr. Octopus is the longest. Well, Otto Octavius is long. You know what, Luke? You should vary it, but get it exactly so you say each of them an equal number of times.
Okay, I'll try. So, overwhelmed by stress, exhaustion, and wanting a normal life and his responsibilities as Spider-Man, Peter begins to lose his powers. So again, Mary Jane is getting engaged to another guy because, Peter can't see Mary Jane because he is Spider-Man. Then we have Harry, who hates Peter because, he blames Spider-Man for his dad's death. The Beagle hates Spider-Man, and he gets no credit from them. He gets, again, no money as well, because he can't hold down a job because, he's Spider-Man. He can't do, his work at the university because, he's Spider-Man and he's, always late. And yeah, another reason I think, there is another reason why, again, this movie should focus on, the relationship between Peter and Octavius is because, now Octavius has turned evil and, Peter has to fight, again, his hero. Well, that should depress him, shouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that aspect is a bit underdeveloped. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So the movie builds up all of the the reasons why Peter wants to shun being Spider-Man. Again, apart from the Doc Ock thing, which again they could add that's a positive. It's a missed opportunity, I think, considering what they have built up. That could be another reason why Peter wants to shun being Spider-Man, because he doesn't want to fight this guy who'd be respected.
I don't want to fight you, Flash. I wouldn't want to fight me either.
Okay,
that's
the
first movie.
Different thing, isn't it? But yeah, basically all the things that the movie does do, with Mary Jane, with Harry, with the Bugle, with oh, he can't hold down a job, he can't do work at the university, he's disappointing Dr. Connors, all of this stuff, that is done in the first hour or so, and therefore it is easy to see why Spider-Man. Why this Spider-Man thing is now a curse, rather than, again, as we said before, like you would think it would be like an escapist fantasy, but it isn't, right? It doesn't seem like a cool thing anymore. It actually kind of seems like a curse, really. And that's when you get to like an hour and 5 minutes into the movie, that's what it seems like. So it's easy to see why Peter, again, shuns, being Spider-Man, which again is kind of crazy to, that you would think, you would agree with Peter that that's what he should do, at the start of the movie. But you get to the stage and it's like, yeah, obviously that's what you should do. Like all your problems go away if you just give up being Spider-Man. So I just want to give the movie credit. This was always where the movie was going to go, but like it, takes the effort to build this up, so when you get to this point, you're like, yeah, Peter should stop being Spider-Man. So I just want to give it credit for that. Yeah. You agree, yeah?
Yeah, and they make it seem like, I don't know, like they make it seem like a really good decision as well. It's not just that they're like, oh, he should, like, as it's leading up to it, but then after he's done it, you're like, yeah, this is great, look at him, he's doing really well at university, no one's whacking them in the head of their bags anymore. So, like, that's the other thing. You're kind of like, oh, it's almost aspirational watching him after he's quit, and he's, just happy with his life.
Yeah, and again, it'd be good if, Doc Ock was like another reason why he didn't want to, continue as Spider-Man, but whatever. It's fine. There's enough reasons why, he'd want to stop being this hero. And again, he has a choice, and I think that kind of thinking counters the responsibility angle, because he says, like, why don't I have the right to do what I want with my life? And that kind of thinking can overcome and overpower the advice from Uncle Ben, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Who cares about this, what stupid uncle had to say?
Yeah, but obviously that was a big line in the first movie. So it's like, so that's what's keeping him being Spider-Man. But that, you should have a choice. Like, everyone has a choice. That is just, again, a simple line of thinking, which is, true, of course. And that can, again, overpower what Ben said, right?
Yeah, I do agree. Because what do they say? They say, the Lord loves a cheerful giver. Like, if you're just, like, doing something... because if you're just doing something because, like, oh, I should, but I kind of hate it. Like, in a way, there's something kind of unheroic about that. Like, in a way, like, if you're doing it, like, oh, I fucking hate doing this, you're like, you're not really being that much of a hero.
Yeah, and again, just to, to step back a bit and look at the big picture, I think it's great that, in a comic book sequel, that these kind of themes are being discussed, and we have characters that have, a major internal conflict, just about whether they want to be a superhero anymore. Again, it's that's great, and it is quite different, again, from a lot of comic book sequels who don't even consider this, this character arc, But this Spider-Man movie does, and it does it really well. It does it so well that maybe it stops other comic book movies from trying this storyline, honestly. I think because, it's like, oh, well, how can we do it better than this movie,
Yeah, this movie sprinted, so other movies could not even get to the starting line.
Yeah, that's a good analogy there. So yeah, again, it's great when Jameson puts on the suit as well. Like every scene with him is just so good, but I just had to point that out.
Yeah, he is great. Like I like the fact that a lot of his scenes are just like completely random. They're almost like vignettes, just peppered throughout the movie.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, like vignettes. So, despite his lost powers, Peter saves a kid from a burning building, but of course another person dies. Believing he could have saved them both as Spider-Man, he concludes that he must sacrifice his personal happiness and remain Spider-Man to protect others. That's the thing. Like his transition back to Spider-Man, I think it happens too quickly. You know.
I kind of think that.
Yeah, 25 minutes. So you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think, I mean, just as a kind of macroscopic thing, I think this movie could have been longer. Like, I'm always surprised because this movie feels like it does a lot. So it's always surprising that it's only 2 hours. And I think, honestly, like, this movie could have been 2.5 hours, and I don't think that would have been, like, that bad, considering, it's kind of epic.
It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, let's be clear.
But yeah, with an extra 20 minutes, they definitely could have done some stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe just even an extra 10 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, you spent an hour and 5 minutes, and again, like I said, really doing this really well, building up to Peter, you know, making the decision to stop being Spider-Man. And then, like, again, 25 minutes later, which isn't really that long in the context of the movie, he's back, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta just stretch that out a bit more. Also, like, Aunt May gives this kind of hokey speech about heroes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which, you know, it's a fine speech to give, but, like, I don't know why she gives the speech unless she knows that Peter is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, like, I'm not sure if it's, like, a bit of, like hint.
Yeah. So, does she think that Peter is Spider-Man now? Like, when did that happen?
Imagine how funny it would be if he wasn't Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Should I say, because that speech is just some random person.
Yeah, again, well, that's what, you know, she is doing, though. Like,
yeah.
You know, but unless she knows that Peter is Spider-Man, which, again, I don't know how she would know that. So
yeah, well, to be fair, like, if you were being absolutely logical, you could ask, how does anybody in Peter's life not know he's Spider-Man at this point?
Well, yeah, I guess so, but yeah. Like, okay, why does Peter become Spider-Man again? It's because he's fine with sacrificing his personal happiness. And I don't know, like, it just feels, if that is the message, it feels like eventually he'll just relapse, you know? Because it doesn't fix the fundamental issue, which is he's not happy. And there's, you know, people don't like being unhappy and being depressed. So if Spider-Man, being Spider-Man is making him depressed, then, you know, it's hard to do, you know, to keep on doing that, you know? Yeah.
Although I will say, like, the movie, it kind of like the one thing in which it ends in a way that doesn't necessarily leave it so open-ended is the fact that Mary Jane knows at this point. Because one thing I was going to say, and I have to say it now, is that I didn't really like the whole kind of like back and forth, like especially like the moment where they're like at the cafe and like Peter's been like freaking out about the fact that he's not been able to get Mary Jane to like him the whole time, and then she's suddenly like, oh, actually, you know, I like you now, and he's like, oh, I don't like you anymore because, you know, like I'm Spider-Man, but obviously he doesn't say it, and it's like that kind of like, you know, he likes her, but then she doesn't like him, and then she likes him, but he doesn't like her, and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's kind of just a bit tedious and annoying, especially when it's like kind of been going on for 2 films. Like, 2/3 of this trilogy is like this awkward thing. And then even in the 3rd film, they don't really get it sorted. But like, the thing is, the one kind of good thing this film does is that at the end of it, she knows he's Spider-Man, and then you can be like, okay, well, now she knows that. At least he's kind of got, like, he doesn't have to do quite as much of the double act stuff of like juggling things. So one positive going forward.
Well, I do think in this part of the movie where, of course, he's like deciding whether to be Spider-Man or not again, what if Mary Jane, of course, she kind of rejects him? Like, what if she doesn't? Would he just not be Spider-Man then?
That's actually a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of lucky that, you know, it doesn't immediately pay off for him.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just read this from Wikipedia. So Raimi felt that thematically, the film had to explore Peter's conflict with his personal wants against his responsibility, of course, which is what the movie does. Exploring his chosen path and how he ultimately decides that he can be happy as a heroic figure. But that's the thing. Like, I don't think he can be happy as a heroic figure. Like, that's what I don't think. I don't think this movie shows that, because it, like, you know, that scene where he saves, you know, a kid in the burning building. He's like, no, I have to do this because, you know, this is who I am. I can't let this kid down because I'm not Spider-Man anymore. But then someone else dies and he like feels guilty, I guess. That's what you know. That's what kind of makes him go back to being Spider-Man. Guilt. Like, I should have saved that guy. Like, rather than, you know, being happy as a heroic figure. Again, maybe I'm missing something, but that's what the movie seems to imply to me. You know. Like,
I would agree with that. Yeah. Like, it doesn't really offer up like a satisfying answer to its titular kind of question, or not titular, central question.
Yes, and I think that again is one of the reasons why this movie isn't as good as well. I'm not going to knock it down in the rating for that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how does Peter become Spider-Man again? Well, he just kind of feels guilty, I guess, about not saving people, and Aunt May says, yes, there has to be heroes, so you should be one then, I guess. And it doesn't, like, the central reason why he stopped being Spider-Man is because he wasn't happy. But, like, the reasons why he can become Spider-Man again, like, it doesn't fix the central, reason why he's stopped being it in the first place, he just doesn't want to feel guilty, and it just wants to, I guess, be a hero because that's whatever that fucking kid, needs. Who's that kid helping Aunt May with the boxes? Like Jackson?
Oh god, yeah, Jackson. Yeah. I feel like that's also got to be like, it doesn't matter, but I feel like that's also got to be some kind of like a nod to some kind of fan thing.
Yeah.
They make a comment about how like he's getting really strong. Like I bet that character's like got like super strength or something.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So this kid needs a hero, so you should be a hero then. You should save people from burning buildings because somebody has to.
Yeah, he's holding out for a hero at the end of the night.
Yeah, again, it would be good if like being Spider-Man actually made him happy. Octavius completes his enhanced machine and confronts Harry, demanding the rare isotope, tritium or whatever, to fuel it. Harry agrees in exchange for Octavius bringing him Spider-Man, instructing Octavius to use Peter to find him. And of course, then realizing she does not love John, Mary Jane meets with Peter to confess her feelings, but he lies that he does not reciprocate because, again, he's being Spider-Man again, he's sacrificing his happiness. So again, we're just back to square one, really, with this kind of shit, like you said before, What did you say about Mary Jane and Peter's relationship?
Well, I just said it's like very like stop and start, on and off, inconsistent.
Yeah. So Octavius attacks the pair and kidnaps.
Yeah. Like this is like it's really funny. Like, and I almost like think this is almost too stupid to be a nitpick.
Yeah.
The fact that he literally throws a car at Peter, and if Peter wasn't Spider-Man, then he would have just died.
Yes. Again, I put that. Yeah, that's not a nitpick. That's like a plot.
Yeah, like that's like a major plot issue. Yeah,
an issue. Yeah, just a stupid thing for like a supposedly smart character to do. Obviously, Mary Jane once again becomes the damsel in distress, which again is an old time, I guess, hokey cliche, which is why Raimi loves it. I guess why we see it over and over again in these Spider-Man movies. Peter gets his powers back, and it seems like it's mainly because of Mary Jane. The girl who he loves.
Yeah,
well, she's captured. And therefore, again, he gets his powers back because he's motivated by saving her, and of course he would be motivated by saving her.
Because she's hot.
Yeah, well, you didn't really need to say that, but
yeah, I just thought I'd say what we're all thinking, like Donald Trump. I mean, like I think it's like that message, like love conquers all or something.
Yeah, but again, it would be good if he was Spider-Man again because of like a genuine like need to be heroic, like save some people. But of course he's gonna want to be Spider-Man to save Mary Jane.
Yeah, it's kind of like I remember like one of the things people complained about with like Superman, Zack Snyder's Superman, is the fact that like at several points it's implied that Lois Lane is the only thing that kind of leaves him attached to humanity, and like the only reason why he's basically not just an inhuman monster. And it's like that's not really good. Like you can't have like the only thing be his love interest.
Yeah. Well, this isn't as bad as that. Like he's not detached from humanity, and he kind of does want to be Spider-Man again. But what really gets him to be this again is Mary Jane's gone. So again, obviously that would be the case. So it's not really a test of his character, proving himself. So Peter, of course, he has his powers return, and as Spider-Man, he battles Octavius atop a subway train. Octavius sabotages the train, forcing Peter to stop the runaway vehicle from plunging into the harbour. A great scene, and one of the best action scenes in a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Again, this is what you said before. Well, you said before, like how in modern, I guess, Marvel movies, you have like just these dimensional abilities or these like powers where people just throw random CGI like light at each other. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Like this is like a physical fight between two people. And that's what makes it so good. I feel.
Yes.
Yeah. What was your favorite moment from it?
Probably the bit where the guy says, "Any other bright ideas?" and Peter just turns around and goes, "A few, yeah," something like that. I can't remember his exact word, but it's like I like the way he's like cocky.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say like, there is no reason for him to take his mask off. Like I think it's like a weird thing because it would be such an easy fix. I could have just had like Otto take it, like grab his mask and pull it off at some point. So I just thought it was a bit weird. He just chooses to take it off, but whatever.
Yeah, I like how you call him Otto. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on first name basis.
Yeah, but yeah, again, it's so good. But the thing is, of course, he is Jesus.
Yes, he is Jesus
at the end, and that again is kind of the message of the movie. Like, yeah, Peter is Jesus. That's his role in this universe. He is the Jesus Christ of New York City. And again, that's okay, but like again, is Jesus like a happy character? Like,
Yeah.
because things didn't end well for Jesus, of course.
Yeah, he also didn't like have a girlfriend.
Yeah,
Not to make fun of him or anything.
well, yeah. So of course, having seen The Last Temptation of Christ, it's that
Yes.
movie. It's a great movie, by the way. But yeah, the sense you get is, wow, it must be shit to be Jesus. Like,
Yeah, so that's the thing. No one wants to be compared to Jesus.
yeah, exactly. Like, Jesus is like, again, he's the founder of the fucking, one of the biggest religions in the world. But like, nobody actually wants to be Jesus.
It's like that's why like the people who claim to be Jesus are always like crazy homeless people. You never have like a rich kind of like well-to-do family man being like, yeah, I think I've decided I'm Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. And being Jesus is shit. And that's the thing with being the Jesus of New York, Peter apparently in this movie, it's shit. So again, like this backs up
Jesus of New York. That just makes it even worse.
Yeah, that backs up what I was saying before about he would relapse because his life is still shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like he's Jesus now. Okay, well, yeah, but nobody wants to be like the guy who is responsible for all of humanity's sins, and God, like the ultimate burden that he had to bear. Jesus, that's what you have to bear. Oh, that sounds like a great life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Peter, of course, gets unmasked, but then, of course, by Harry when Octavius brings him to Harry, and Peter persuades Harry to help him save Mary Jane, leading him to Octavius's lair. And again, that was a setup to the sequel. It isn't resolved at all, is it? So I guess, yeah, Raimi knew what direction he wanted to go with the sequel with that scene, right? Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, like people have pointed out, he could have like actually explained it, but whatever. Yeah. Because he's just like, oh, there are bigger things happening. And it's like, he could have said, well, like he kind of killed himself, but I don't know. Yeah.
Just say there are bigger things happening, and that solves it. Yeah. So the fusion reaction destabilizes again. God, what a shit scientist this guy is, honestly. And Peter unmasks himself to convince Octavius to reject the tentacle's influence and help him. Reject the tentacle's influence is
Oh yeah, yeah. So like, where the tentacles asking for like money for like some kind of like.
Yes, I thought about that.
And they're like extending over the. Also, the tentacles tell him to go get money from a bank.
Yes, and of course, where's the movie set?
Yeah,
it's all adding up. So Octavius, acknowledging his folly, sacrifices himself to drown the machine in the bay. Like you said, shouldn't really work. But should he give up? Because he has a massive ego. That's what's driving him throughout the movie, of course. Yeah. Like, I need to build this. My whole life's work can't be for this. And Peter is like, yeah, you have to sacrifice your dreams for the greater good. But like you're saying that to a guy who's just been consumed by his ego. Would that work? I'm not really sure. Yeah, I
don't know. Yeah, it's like Wonder Woman when she just gives that speech, and everyone's like, "Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna undo my wish to not be dying."
Because like that's the thing. Peter, like he is again New York Jesus. That's what we're calling him now. So he can say this, but again, Octavius has shown he is the furthest thing from New York Jesus. Again, so like, would he take that advice that Peter has? I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Taken on board.
Preached.
Yeah, well, would he? I don't think he would, but whatever. So Peter rescues Mary Jane, who now knows his secrets and admits that while he loves her, he cannot be with her. On her wedding day, Mary Jane abandons the ceremony and runs to Peter's apartment, telling him that she chooses to be with him despite the risk. And yeah, like it's kind of a get out of jail free card. I mean, because like the whole movie has been based around the conflict of Peter. Is he going to be Spider-Man or is he going to have a normal life? Well, he chooses to be Spider-Man. He chooses to be, again, this Jesus-like figure who sacrifices everything to help the people who need help. And then Mary Jane is like, actually, you don't have to choose. Which, again, it's a nice ending, but I do think it kind of undercuts like his character arc, Again, if that was built up more, like if Peter revealed himself earlier on in the movie to Mary Jane, and then Mary Jane is like, he's like, no, but it's fine, you don't have to be with me. And Mary Jane's like, no, I don't care. It just, I don't know.
I mean, I'll also say like, because there are two other incarnations of Spider-Man to compare. I like the other two incarnations of Spider-Man where much earlier on, I was going to say much earlier on in the Tom Holland version, not as much really. But then having said that, she's not really a love interest in the first film anyway. So I guess I can say relative to when they become love interest, much earlier on, they find out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker or Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And I think that works better because it's more fun to see them working together. And I think even, it's very rare to praise Amazing Spider-Man, but even the way that like Emma Stone's character in The Amazing Spider-Man is like getting involved, she's like researching, she like I think hits someone with her car at one point. Like that's much more fun than like this movie or this series, I should say, where Mary Jane is mostly just kind of whinging on the sidelines, not even like with it even being her fault, because obviously she's shut out by Peter, and that's sad.
Yes, And in general, I think the second half of the movie is weaker than the first half. Like the first half does a really good job of establishing, why Peter doesn't want to be Spider-Man, and then the second half of the movie kind of, obviously gets Peter back into a place where he is Spider-Man. But I just think, it's quite bad how it does it.
I'd agree with that assessment.
Well, it's not quite bad. It's just underwhelming, I guess.
Yeah.
It could be better compared to the first half. It could be better. Anyway, let's conclude. Michael, you go first.
Yeah, right. So yeah, this movie, it definitely does have a lot of strengths. The way that it does put this focus on the characters is nice. Kind of subjectively, I like this more kind of happy-go-lucky tone, and there are like cute moments. Like I kind of didn't really praise it directly, but like the moment where the New Yorker's like, hey, you want to get to him, you got to go through us, like that's a cute moment. So those are all the strengths, and of course, I mean, the action, like there are a lot of strengths that are easy to list off, and there are, though, a few negatives, but the thing is that the negatives, it's more a case of things the movie was for the most part doing well, that it just didn't do quite as well as it could have, which is not the worst situation. Like I think it's always better to have criticisms where it's not like, oh, they failed to do this thing, but it's more like, they failed to take this thing as far as they could, or like to the best extent. So like it's not the worst criticism.
What are you gonna give?
Overall, I think I'm gonna give it a high 7. No, I'm gonna give it a middling 7. I think unfortunately there are a few issues. Yeah, middling 7 from me.
All right, I'm gonna give it an 8.5, despite me criticizing the movie quite a bit. That's the thing. I give the first one 8.5. I'm like, it's about the same as the first one. Maybe I'd give the edge to this one, but yeah, an 8.5 seems fair. Again, like the second half of the movie, there's just too many issues. This could have been really, really good. But yeah, it's still obviously quite good. Even actually very, very good. I like it, but yeah, I think again, if they just made Peter, like the whole thing about Peter being Jesus, again, I just don't really like that. And again, I think we have to assume that because of course, he does look like Jesus when he's being carried by the people on the subway, right? That and of course it fits in the whole character arc, fits in with the lesson he learns. So we're not wrong to assume he is like a Jesus type figure, right? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and I just don't really buy that, considering again, he is just a normal person. And like he is a hero, but he is again it's still a normal person. So yeah, and at the end, he gets to be with Mary Jane anyway, so it's all okay. Kind of undercuts the sacrifice, which isn't the best. So yeah, I'm only going to give it an 8.5 because again, I think the action scenes are great. The first part of the movie is really good, so I really like a lot of stuff, and it's still obviously for a superhero movie, really great. Yeah, how it looks at the characters, like we said at the start, rather than just how it looks at the characters and gives a good introspection on particularly Peter. Yeah, it's so far ahead of other superhero movies which just don't focus on this kind of stuff enough. But yeah, what will be reviewing next week, Michael?
Next week we are reviewing, we've already said, like we're doing movies from 2004, superhero movies, or movies about characters who are heroes in their own way, and of course we're going to be looking at Catwoman.
Yes, so join us next week for Catwoman. Let's see if that's better than Spider-Man 2. Anyway, I've been Luke. Thanks for listening to Select and Reflect. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
And yeah, join us next week for Catwoman. Bye.
Goodbye.